allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Jonathan Ramsey,
Here.
Marianne Rosa,
Here.
Ken Demers,
Here.
Robert Jacina,
Here.
Anthony DeBona,
Here.
Gary Lafferty,
Here.
Robert Ritalik,
Here.
Denise Russ,
Here.
and Rachel Ryan.
Here.
Thank you. Public comment. Anyone that would like to present anything to the town council, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, I will close public comment. Motion for the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of August 15th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion passes. I have nothing in the chairman's report. Town manager?
Good evening, Honorable Chairman and members of the Town Council. Just to bring you up to date on COVID, we've had pretty much a good downturn on COVID for this past 2 weeks. Have actually had no one tested for COVID, and there was no COVID positive test in the town of Watertown. Our noise ordinance, I did check in with our attorney representing us for this change, and we are still waiting response from DEEP on the noise ordinance. The Wilson Street Bridge, there's no update at this time, but we are getting close to putting that out to bid for construction year 2023. Guernsey Town Road, we do have an item on the agenda in which we'll talk about our next step for that project. Steelbrook Greenway, we've been in touch with VHB, which is one of the state agencies that approved the scope of work that was negotiated between the town of Watertown and Weston and Sampson. The next step is for Weston and Sampson to provide us with a work matrix so that we can then negotiate an hourly rate for each individual line item. I just emailed Weston and Sampson today, so I'm hoping to get a response within the next few days. No additional information on Naugatuck River Greenway. We're still waiting for funding sources for that. The Department of Public Works had taken part in a mutual aid drill with the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security that was very successful. They actually got into a radio call and worked back and forth through mutual aid response and understanding of how to work with other departments in the area in case we needed assistance, became overwhelmed from some type of emergency. So from what I was told, it was very successful. There was some learning that went on between all the towns, which will help us work better with each other as we move forward. Taft had submitted a $190,000 donation to the town on August 23rd. Additionally, they made additional donations to the fire department in the amount of $17,500 and $12,500 for the police department. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any subcommittee reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business.
I make a motion to approve the resolution regarding the adoption of the proposed ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Appropriating $1,500,000 for the acquisition of a fire truck and related equipment and authorizing the issue of bonds or notes and temporary notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation."
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, we're going to do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Sue?
Jonathan Ramsey,
In favor? Aye.
Marianne Rosa,
Aye.
Ken Demers,
Aye.
Robert Jacina,
Aye.
Anthony DeBona,
Aye.
Robert Ritalik,
Aye.
Gary Lafferty,
Aye.
Denise Russ,
Aye.
and Rachel Ryan.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on.
I make a motion to approve the resolution regarding the adoption of the proposed ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Appropriating $5 million for Various Road Improvements and Related Work," and authorizing the issue of bonds or notes and in temporary notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on this line item? Seeing none, do a roll call vote.
Okay, Jonathan Ramsey,
Aye.
Marion Rosa,
Aye.
Ken Demers,
Aye.
Robert DeCina,
Aye.
Anthony DeBona,
Aye.
Robert Vitale,
Aye.
Gary Lafferty,
Aye.
Denise Russ,
Aye.
and Rachel Ryan.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Motion passes. C.
I make a motion to amend the resolution regarding the adoption of the proposed ordinance to change the appropriation for the various school capital improvement projects to $12,861,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just for the record, this is the amount that the Board of Ed most recently requested from us. One of our previous votes at the 11 million mark would not allow them to do all the projects that they were asking for. This amount should be sufficient. And I also want to mention that we're, with grants that are available, we expect to get somewhere in that 4 million plus range back from the state of Connecticut if all that paperwork is approved. Any additional discussion on this? Yes?
Just one, for clarification, we had the public hearing on this, and they approved 11 million. Do we?
They did not approve anything, they just discussed,
They just give you comment.
yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yep. Oh,
I second. I did.
any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Okay, Jonathan Ramsey,
Aye.
Marion Rosa,
Aye.
Ken Demers,
Aye.
Robert DeCina,
Aye.
Anthony DeBona,
Aye.
Robert Vitale,
Aye.
Gary Lafferty,
Aye.
Denise Russ,
Aye.
Rachel Ryan.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve the resolution regarding the adoption of the proposed ordinance entitled An Ordinance Appropriating $12,861,000 for various school capital improvements and authorizing the issue of bonds or notes and temporary notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Jonathan Ramsey,
Aye.
Marion Rosa,
Aye.
Ken Demers,
Aye.
Robert DeCina,
Aye.
Anthony DeBona,
Aye.
Robert Vitale,
Aye.
Gary Lafferty,
Aye.
Denise Russ,
Aye.
Rachel Ryan.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next.
I move to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the ordinances considered under agenda items 9A, 9B, and 9C be submitted to the electors for approval or disapproval at referendum to be held Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, in conjunction with the election to be held on that date, and shall be published in full within 10 days in a newspaper having circulation within the town. The town clerk shall publish notice of the referendum, which shall be incorporated into the notice of said election. The ballot headings for the ordinances submitted under said items shall read as follows. Shall the town of Watertown appropriate $1,500,000 for the acquisition of a fire truck and related equipment, and authorize the issue of bonds or notes and temporary notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation? Shall the town of Watertown appropriate $5 million for the various road improvements and related work, and authorizing the issue of bonds or notes and temporary notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation? Shall the town of Watertown appropriate $12,861,000 for various school capital improvements, and authorize the issue of bonds or notes and temporary notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation? Electors approving the ordinance shall vote yes, and those opposed to the ordinance shall vote no. Polls shall be open between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this?
Just a quick note on the second appropriation, a question mark after appropriation.
Yep.
I don't know if that'll be changed later or now, or I'm just bringing it to our attention.
Well, the way that it was read, it might have included a question mark. so it will.
Well, that's true.
We'll make sure there's a question mark on it. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll do another roll call vote on that.
Jonathan Ramsey,
Aye.
Marion Rosa,
Aye.
Ken Demirs,
Aye.
Robert DeCina,
Aye.
Anthony DeBona,
Aye.
Robert Vitale,
Aye.
Gary Lafferty,
Aye.
Denise Russ,
Aye.
and Rachel Ryan.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing explanatory text and materials for the bond referendum for the approved ordinances under agenda items A through C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $4,992.26 for absentee ballots. Funds received as a grant from the Secretary of the State.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $12,500 for police overtime associated with the Police Academy for adults and youth and use of force training. Funds received from a JAG Local Violent Crime Prevention Grant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $7,508.13 for police overtime. The funds received from the Drug Enforcement Administration, funds were received from the Drug Enforcement Administration for reimbursement for our participation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $2,136.96 for police overtime. Funds received from the FBI for participation in the grant task force.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes.
I make a motion to approve an appropriation of $25,500 from the general fund for engineering services for the Guernsey Town at West Road project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just had a question. Now, we're hiring this firm there. Is this work that our own engineering department can do?
Someone might have to turn their mic off. There you go.
Thank you. This is not work that our engineering department could take on. They're taxed at the amount of work that they're doing already. This particular level of work is only conducted in the engineering company that we have requested to do the work. I've talked to our town engineer, and he's just not able to follow up and stay on track with the project as it moves forward. So this is an hourly rate job, so they've given us a quote on this, and we may not expense it all, but we're expecting that we will.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to authorize entering into an agreement for extra duty solutions for special duty administration and collections.
And is there a second?
Second.
And we have a presentation from the police chief.
Testing. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council. In collaboration with the Town Manager's Office and the Finance Department, the Watertown Police Department is recommending the Town Council authorize an agreement with a company called Extra Duty Solutions to administrate the Police Department's Extra Duty Program. I'll explain exactly what our Extra Duty Program is, what our current methods are and what the proposal is. So extra duty at the Watertown Police Department is when Watertown police officers are hired by outside entities to perform police-related duties. Such duties include traffic control, and safety and security. Whenever you see an officer flagging traffic, generally at a construction site, that construction firm that's doing the work there has hired that officer privately to conduct those services on the road. The town of Watertown right now pays the officer up front, and the town of Watertown then invoices the vendor who reimburses the town. Some of the vendors who hire us include utility companies, construction companies, retail businesses, private citizens, the Board of Education, and town departments such as our town highway department and our park and rec department. So the vendor will call the Watertown Police Department Dispatch Center. Our dispatcher will take the call from the vendor and fill out a job ticket. The dispatcher forwards this job ticket to our support services sergeant, Jared DeAndrea, who's with us tonight and can answer any questions if you have any. If Sergeant DeAndrea is not available, it's either his day off or it's after hours, that job ticket then goes to the on-duty patrol sergeant to fill. Sergeant DeAndrea or the patrol sergeant will enter that job into our scheduling software and then assign the job to a police union member in accordance with the bargaining agreement rules. The scheduling sergeant calls every police officer via telephone in order of least hours worked and offers the jobs to each one in accordance with those rules, and that does take a significant amount of time, as you can imagine. We do allow retirees and officers from surrounding towns to work the extra duty jobs in Watertown if all of our active duty members have declined the work. So there's a hierarchy that we go through. Once all of our full-time employees have been exhausted, it gets offered to eligible retirees from our department. Once they have been exhausted, we have mutual aid agreements in place with the Borough of Naugatuck, the town of Middlebury, the town of Thomaston, and the town of Plymouth, whose officers, if they have any available, could come into the town of Watertown and perform those duties. Regarding billing and pay, officers submit a pay chit to the police department's administrative assistant, Patrizia Guerrera. Patrizia verifies all those pay chits, must make sure they match the job as it's listed in the computer system, that the hours are an address and all the vendor information matches between the chit and the scheduling software. Many chits don't end up matching, as in some of the jobs can go over in hours, etc., and they must all be figured out which is correct. Is the scheduling software correct, or is the job chit correct? Oftentimes there's a little bit of an investigation that has to take place to make sure that the job chit and the scheduling software match. Once verified, all those pay chits are forwarded to our payroll department at Town Hall. The finance department processes all these pay chits, which includes calculating the officer's pay and invoicing all of the vendors. Jared, how many jobs right now are we filling a day? About 34-hour blocks, correct? Dispatch gets tied up with these administrative job-taking calls. These are the issues that we're currently having. This has been an issue with the dispatcher union. This comes up in negotiations with their contract quite often, where the dispatch union feels they're being a secretarial to the police union. For police union work that has been an issue. Plus, it takes up quite a bit of a dispatcher's time to take down all that information and fill out the job ticket. Meanwhile, we can have emergency calls going on and busy call volume on the radio. It can become problematic in our dispatch center. Sergeant DeAndrea spends about 50% of his time filling this work. That's work other work that I would much rather be assigning to Sergeant DeAndrea, but 50% of his time goes into making these phone calls on a daily basis to fill all this work. When Sergeant DeAndrea is not available, our on-duty patrol sergeant must assume this duty, which takes them away from supervising the work on the road. A lot of Patrizia's time is involved in processing these pay chits, finance staff spends an inordinate amount of time processing the paychecks and then invoicing the vendors. And the town of Watertown must float the officer's pay before it's received back after invoicing. The town of Watertown then assumes all the risk of non-payment. So over the past 4 years, we have just about $190,000 in delinquent invoices that have not been paid. That averages about $47,000 per year. Regarding how we fill these jobs, officers are hired contractually for a minimum of 4 hours. Their current pay rate is $71.81 an hour. That's $287 for a 4-hour block. Currently, the town of Watertown attaches a 30% surcharge to this rate, which is approximately $86 for every 4-hour block worked. That 30% surcharge is received by the town as revenue. For fiscal year 21 to 22, we've received approximately $950,000 through invoicing. That does not mean that's the amount that's actually been invoiced for that fiscal year, but that is what has been received. We've had some significant vendors pay up all at once in this fiscal year that was billed out in the prior fiscal year. So it's not an exact number of what was actually invoiced in a particular fiscal year. It just so happens to be what was received in the last fiscal year. Our total expenses, which is primarily just officers' pay, is about $652,000. That shows the total town revenue for that particular fiscal year at just under $300,000. And we're going to show you a video presentation on what extra duty solution will offer the town of Watertown. And I do have a representative of Extra Duty Solutions here, Mr. Adam Bryan, who can answer any questions that the council may have. Make it work for
Cross your fingers. Patients that come along with it also provide big headaches for your agency. At Extra Duty Solutions, we solve these problems and admit.
If it's not, we can move on. Embedding videos in a PowerPoint presentation, you have about a 50-50 shot of it actually playing. I think I'm on the losing end of that one.
Just explain it to us.
It was an excellent video, you would have loved it.
Yeah.
Did an excellent job presenting it.
Yeah, just move along.
So until we get our, are you able to get the actual PowerPoint presentation back on? Interesting. I'm on page 4 on the handout I gave you on the second slide down. What Extra Duty Solutions does, they will take on the entire administration of the program. All vendors would call Extra Duty Solutions directly to hire an officer for the work. Extra Duty Solutions will then, using our own rules, hire all the officers for that job. They will go through the full-time employees first, they will then move to the retirees, and then on to our mutual aid partners, just as we do now. They will float the pay coverage to all the officers. So the town will pay, and Extra Duty Solutions will cut a check to the town each week to cover the pay that goes out. So the town of Watertown is never behind in dollars between what's paid out to the officers and what we have invoiced out for collection. And Extra Duty Solutions will assume that credit risk of any non-payment. There's also some legal risk mitigation, which I'm not, Adam, you might be able to speak more to that than I can at the moment, but we can come back to that in a few minutes. I'm going to move on to the second slide on page 5. Extra Duty Solutions earns their income by applying a surcharge to the invoiced amount to the vendors, just as the town of Watertown applies that 30% surcharge. The Extra Duty Solutions applies a 7.75% surcharge to the invoiced amount. There would be an additional 0.5% added on if for us to no longer pay for maintenance and support for our scheduling software, which Extra Duty Solutions parent company owns. So for that extra 0.5% added on, we would no longer have to pay about $3,300 a year that we currently pay for the maintenance and support of the software for our scheduling at the police department. And in doing that calculations, it balances out almost equal for what we pay as to what that 0.5% is worth. Also, for an additional 1% tacked on, they will administrate all local town jobs, which is any job that's hired from the Public Works Department, the Park Department, the Board of Education, anything that comes from the town public coffers. The Extra Duty Solutions will administrate all those jobs as well for free and will not bill the town for their services for those jobs. But basically, that 1% would be billed to all the other vendors, which would pay for that program. In discussing this program with our police union, as we would need their support to change the way we handle their work. The police union is 100% on board with this program, but feel if Extra Duty Solutions adds another 10 or 9.25% on top of the town's already 30%, that the cost for hiring an officer is going to be too steep and would be an issue for many of the utility companies and other entities that do hire the officers, and feel we'd be pricing ourselves out of that market. They said they would be in full support if the town reduced their surcharge so that the town's surcharge would be 20.75% rather than the 30%. So the 20.5% added on with Extra Duty Solutions, 9.25% would remain exactly at the 30% surcharge overall. Did anybody have any questions on that? It is our recommendation that the town council does approve Extra Duty Solutions as the police department's extra duty administrator and authorize the reduction of the town of Watertown surcharge from 30% to 20.75%. Moving on to page 6. Simple math shows that the town of Watertown would receive 1/3 less in revenue by reducing 10% of the surcharge. This would be offset, though, by that approximate $47,000 in non-collection that does occur every single year. Furthermore, we would no longer have to pay that $3,300 annually for the scheduling software. So we're in an approximate range of a $50,000 net loss in revenue to the town of Watertown. The result, however, it is our opinion that there's a net gain for the town of Watertown here. Extra Duty Solutions would be covering that float. They would be taking on the risk of all non-payment. They would be relieving our dispatchers, supervisors, and finance staff of an extremely time-consuming duty. And so the police department right now is at a breaking point with being able to manage the volume of extra duty work that we are taking in. It is straining our dispatch center. It is straining Sergeant DeAndre to a point where I can't assign him many of the administrative tasks I need to be able to assign him to be in compliance with all new police accountability measures, which is quite time-consuming. Current staff time can be reallocated to benefit this town more time for quality control inspections. Sergeant DeAndrea handles a lot of our grant writing, but we've had to pass over a few just because we don't have time to even attend to them. This will free up a lot of his time to be able to address some of the grants that are available for the law enforcement. It will allow us more time to make sure we're in compliance with our new police accountability regulations, and it will free up some payroll staff for tasks such as alarm billing, et cetera. Thank you for your time and consideration. I do have Adam here that could explain any questions you would have about the program and how it's administered, and any questions you have about how we currently handle it. Sergeant DeAndrea would certainly be able to answer those questions.
Thank you. Any questions? I'll start down there.
Chief, how will grievances be handled now if a mistake is made by Extra Duty Solutions and there's a grievance from your police officers? How would that be handled?
So it would still be handled in the same way the contract allows. The grievance would come to the chief's office first, and I would try to mitigate that with Extra Duty Solutions directly. Adam, I imagine you have experience with this very issue. Would you like to speak to that?
Thanks. My name's Adam Bryan with Extra Duty Solutions. We work with Naugatuck, Stratford, Stamford in Connecticut, Southbury soon, and then New Jersey, about 80 departments. So we're very familiar with the grievance process and working with the unions. So I'll give you one example, which fortunately doesn't happen often because we'd be out of business, but say you have a 2-hour cancellation policy and our person takes a call, just, I don't know, forgets to notify the officers, and then an hour later they notify the officer. That officer will get a minimum payment. That's on us. So that's, fortunately doesn't occur often, but that's one of the perks of using our system.
Chief, can you touch base on the discussion that we would have with the union and their company to address the actual way we're going to go out to work? There's going to be a lot of effort put into that to prevent any mitigating issues.
So the way Extra Duty Solutions work, right now we work on an actual telephone call basis with each of the patrol officers. We have a master overtime list that lists every single active duty patrol officer and the amount of overtime hours that they've worked to date. That list is always sorted electronically so that the low hours are on top and they're the first officer to be offered the next job that's on the list. We call all the way down that list, sometimes several times in one day, Jared, to fill all those jobs. And we've got to move on to retirees and our mutual aid partners. Extra Duty Solutions moves to an entirely electronic format. The officers will bid on all those jobs electronically through an electronic application, which can either be on the phone or on the web. At a prescribed time, which the union will work out with Extra Duty Solutions, the software is going to immediately run an algorithm and start assigning those jobs electronically to officers who will receive both an email and a text message informing them of what job they've been awarded based on the union rules.
Turn your mic on.
Chief.
Sir. Mike.
Chief, would one of the benefits be where a vendor, let's say a small or private construction company, requested officers a month ago, 2 months ago, and they never paid the payment back to the town for the use of these officers? Would that be red flagged by the firm that would prohibit them from hiring officers in advance again to make repeat offenders?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you explain that, sir, how you would do that?
Yeah, so say landscaping company worked here a month ago and they didn't pay their bill. So once we start, we just need to be notified of these vendors. And then in our system, when we choose that name, a big sign pops up. Hey, make sure you get the past payment plus the prepayment.
Thank you. So that would take out of the loop the dispatcher's getting a call from somebody not knowing this, it being sent to the patrol supervisor who would more serve the public and the department in supervising his men, and that firm would not be hired then.
That's correct. Extra Duty Solutions takes on 100% of the administration of this program.
Thank you, very beneficial.
Agreed.
Marion?
I just have a procedural question. How does the average business vendor individual find out to call the solutions versus the town?
So the first thing we'll do, once it's approved, we'll send a letter to all the current and past vendors. So they'll have, we set up a local phone number in Watertown, a local email address specific to Watertown, and then an online portal. So if someone wants to call, they can do that. Some people prefer emails, other the portal. And then also a lot of towns on their police website, they'll put a page, how to hire officers. So a lot of people, the public will go there. And then a lot of people will call dispatch. Hey, I need to hire for, a wedding next weekend. Then dispatch, we give them these cards. They'll just read off the card.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? Here.
The only question I had is what's the 20% going to be used for? Not for extra duty, but you're dropping it down from 30 to 20?
So if the town council agrees and authorizes this recommendation, that 20.75% is town revenue that goes into the general fund, I
Comes
believe,
to the
correct?
general fund.
Okay. All right.
Anyone else?
I have a quick one.
Someone turn off some mics.
Why is that?
It's limited on how many mics you could use.
Chief, thank you that was a very good presentation. My question is, you said that we would be priced out if we went higher than the 30% gross kind of, do you think we could squeeze out 35%? I mean, why, you just talk on that for a minute?
So I don't know any other community at all in Connecticut that charges as much as the town of Watertown does on a surcharge. 30% is very high. However, that is mitigated by the fact that we do not at this time charge for cruiser use, where some departments may charge an hourly rate for a vendor that wants to utilize a police cruiser. We always keep 3 of our oldest cruisers with the highest mileage. We call them extra duty vehicles, and officers who are assigned extra duty on some of our more arterial roadways, such as Main Street or Echo Lake Road, Buckingham Street, et cetera, would take these extra duty vehicles to have extra scene protection with the overhead lights flashing. We do not charge a surcharge for the use of those vehicles to the vendors, so that 30% surcharge kind of covers that.
And I have another quick, it's kind of a naive question, but when these customers or these private companies need to hire the extra duty, do they have a choice? I mean, to go to another town, can they have another police department come private to do the extra duty in Watertown?
So no, the town of Watertown actually has an ordinance in effect right now that states any company that is looking to occupy any portion of the roadway, the travel lanes of the roadway for construction work, or as any open hole in any public roadway, must hire a local police officer for the safety of that scene.
So, in my view, we could potentially go up maybe a little bit, than 30%, because they really don't have a choice. That's my opinion
Yeah, that
anyway.
certainly is at the discretion of the council. The only fear on that is the issue we would be, that we'd have to renegotiate that with the police union as well.
I see. Thank you.
Chair, if I can. So that the 20%, again, I want to get back to that. Is that the same price you charge every community? So we don't go to Naugatuck and find out that you charge them 12%?
No, the 9%.
Or the 9%?
So I think the question is if you hire one of our mutual aid partners.
No, I'm saying
Okay.
that you say you do work with Naugatuck currently right now. Do they pay the same 9% as we'd be paying?
I'm not sure.
So there might be room to negotiate that 9% down lower?
I think that you were given the best price.
I just don't want to go and find out from the Naugatuck police chief that they're paying 6% and we just paid 9%.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know exactly what they pay, but it's based on volume, mostly on volume. So like, a large city might pay a little lower, but they're doing, 100 times the volume.
I just look at this as we're seeing a net loss in our revenue, whether it's $50,000, somewhere around there, and that we should be able to find out some way on how to recoup that. You're getting Mr. DeAndrea's hours back, which is great, because I do think that you need his hours back. I'm just looking for a way, and how do we mitigate that $50,000 loss? Because to me, I look at it and say, it could be cheaper if I went out and hired my own secretary to run the program for you.
Yeah, and quite honestly, we, at the police department, was getting very close to approaching the town manager, saying, I'm gonna need additional help to administrate this program at the police department, which would either be on an overtime basis or through extra hiring. I think in that scenario.
Yeah, I'm in
it would
agreement
be
that you
savings.
need somebody to administer this program for you.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see the town take the $50,000 hit for this program. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I understand.
As far as communicating with the company related to the list of officers and the order that they're in based on the amount of overtime they've received, what would the procedure be? Is that something that's like a list is sent over on a weekly basis, or do they somehow have, real-time data from us, or how would that work?
Just in regards to the rules, so we can go by the list, resets itself every 6 months, so they would basically have access to that list. It's a rolling list, so they'll pick up where they left off the day previously. The way that it works now is and it's one of the reasons why it takes a lot of time, is we'll do work in Naugatuck, we'll do work in other towns. Those are their own separate lists, so you almost have to start all over again to do that, but they would have control of all that. Every 6 months, the list would reset, and then from there, it would pick back up, and, it'll just pick up where it left off the previous day.
So I guess my question is this a list that then would get sent to the company on a weekly basis, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's all electronic. Like you mentioned grievances. So every job that's assigned off these many different lists, you have all the data. So the list is always current until we need to update it per the rules. So if today it goes 1 through 30, and then tomorrow it starts at 5, it's all electronic, and it's all audited, and if there's any problems, you can go back and look at it.
And to add to his answer there, Extra Duty Solutions parent company owns the scheduling software we utilize. That software integrates directly with their software, so which is a software as a service. It's all online, so they would have complete access to our real-time scheduling data at all times.
You mentioned earlier that roughly $47,000 a year is billed but not collected. In your opinion, what's kind of the underlining reasoning? Is it just companies out there I'm not paying it, so come sue me, or is it administrative burden, or what's the?
That's the finance department's responsibility. We do send out monthly statements to these companies, and we just have to sit and wait for the money to come in. The money that's open right now and that's due, it's over multiple years. It's not just a one current year. This $40,000, we may collect some of it. Some, when they need another job, they're going to realize they have an outstanding bill with us, and then they'll pay then. That seems to be one of the most common reasons. But we do send out monthly reminders to all the outstanding invoices.
And it seemed like a lot of the procedures you're doing yourself. Is there a reason why a sergeant has to kind of oversee the program versus a different member of the police department? Less expensive member of the police department, I guess is the question.
Yeah, our less expensive members of the police department.
We're still expensive.
Are still expensive, and they all they're all responsible for their patrol shifts and to fill our obligations on the road. We are generally only running about 3, maybe 4 patrol officers at any one time out on the road, and to take one of them off the road, which is what would be required to do this, to administrate this program. From a chief's perspective, that wouldn't be acceptable. So that's where I have my administrative sergeant, who's off the road to begin with, assumes those duties.
Any question?
I'm gathering from the information you've given us that you've really reached a point where you can't go forward the way you are any longer. You have to have some solution, either an additional person or solutions or whatever. So assuming you had to hire someone, would it not cost that $50,000
I
in
am
wages
certain-
and wages
I
and
am
benefits?
certain it would. Whether we do make this as an over some communities that are facing with this crisis before extra duty solutions is even a thing, ended up either having to hire civilian staff to administrate the program or in negotiation with the union at those departments made it an overtime function, which of course is extremely expensive.
But even if it's a civilian person with salary and benefits, it's going to cost us more than $50,000.
Even if it were part-time, we'd probably be it would be expensive. I don't have any numbers prepared for that, but there would be a cost.
Mr. Chairman, in addition to that, I also don't forget about the back office work that's going on as well. So our payroll department is burdened with this responsibility of billing, monitoring, collecting. There's been a lot of additional tasks that have been put on that office specifically. And to be honest with you, we're looking at increasing staff or trying to take some of these jobs and outsource them. So this is preventing us from increasing staff and increasing the benefits that go along with that increase of staff. I fully support this. I know it is a decrease in revenue, and I think that's important, and maybe we should renegotiate our price a little bit more to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck. But I think that this is the right solution for us to give relief to the police department as well as the finance department.
Through the chair, one
And
more.
Yep.
One more. Don't think that I'm against this, because I'm not against this. I would much rather give you $50,000 towards another police officer than lose $50,000. And that's what my concern is on this. So I support you loosening up some duties to your police officers that desperately need it.
Thank you.
My last question is, how many years would the contract be?
I believe it's on a year-to-year basis.
We should do 30 days, so if we're not doing a good job, we're going to get so you're not locked in.
Yep. Any other discussion, questions?
One final quick one for
Your
me.
mic.
Someone got me, someone turned me off. No, I'm also in favor of it. I agree with Mr. Vitalik there, that, in general, what he said, I agree with fully. But is there, my question is, the 9.25% that is being charged, is that something that is going to change every 30 days, or how is that? Is that an annual, or?
Well, it's ongoing.
No, the reason we do the percentage is then we don't have to change the contract. So say the officers get a raise, $10 raise, we don't have to come back because the percentage goes up and down with the officer's wage.
Yeah, and I just personally would have liked to seen, us work something where we can mitigate that. It's probably more than a $50,000 expense because we're probably including in the $47,000 write-off but, I mean, with that said, like I said, I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good thing for the police department, but I'd like to see us do some stuff to try to mitigate those expenses.
And that $50,000 number was really inflated in this past fiscal year. We had some very large vendors, very large utility companies in the state finally make good on their invoices in the last fiscal year, which brought in a significant amount of revenue in that 1 year. The actual pay that is actually more in line with, is that officer, that's total officer pay, correct? That's prior to the 30% surcharge? Or is that with the 30% surcharge? This number here?
officer pay.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to misquote any particular numbers, but I do want to just say that the amount of money that we did take into the 21-22 fiscal number exceeded the actual invoiced amount, only because we had some large vendors pay delinquent bills.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Ready?
Yep.
I make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the transfer of funds between line items for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Could I ask, I'm sorry. Could I ask Sue for just a little quick explanation?
This is just a bookkeeping that we do the end of every fiscal year. The budget being as large as it is, we have like if there's positions that are changed throughout the year and stuff, we may overexpend in one line item and not, and have extra in another, which you could see in the salary one, a lot of them are just jobs that were switched around. Also, with this new software we had this year, as you all know, we stumbled quite a bit in the beginning. So I think things are getting paid out of the wrong line item, and this just cleaned it up. So now there's nothing in the negative, everything's in the positive for the general fund. And this we do every year. It's nothing unusual.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $28,000 for tax refunds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the tax refunds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. We're going to be taking a break for a non-public meeting to discuss labor negotiations.
Recording stopped.
We'll be back in a few.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This way, we just change the sergeant. This person.